Okay. You've had a lot of foundational information thrown at you. You've learned about beginner teacher needs. You've learned about the different pathways into the profession, the roles and responsibilities that a mentor has to take on in order to support those beginning teachers and meet their needs. Now we need to look at how do you do that? And so I'm going to introduce you to the mentoring cycle today. I will tell you that today is just an overview. It's just a chance for you to peek at it and see what it's about. Tomorrow we are going to live in it. So tomorrow everything that we do is taking you through that cycle and letting you experience it and feel it and practice it. But today is just let's look at it and see what is there on the cycle. So if you will turn to page 30 in your handbook. This is what we call our Guide to Professional Success, our GPS. And I have it here on the screen. I have a poster up on the door, but it's much easier to see in your handbook. So if you want to kind of follow along in that, and you could even take notes on it if you'd like to. If you want to keep it clean, that's fine as well. Okay, but you'll see there, what's in the center? Trust. Everything that we have talked about so far today can only happen if we have trust. Because we can have the best listening ears in the world, but if we haven't established that trust, that teacher's not going to feel comfortable with us. Okay, so we have to start in the center with trust. That has to be the foundation of our relationship with the mentee. The first stage in the mentor cycle is the pre-observation conference. Now, I will tell you that while this is the first formal stage in the cycle, it is not the first time you are interacting with your mentee. Okay? You have already had conversations. You've gotten to know that person. You've built up that trust so that when you come into this very formal dialogue, you already have that rapport with that teacher. The purpose of the pre-observation conference is to identify a focus for the observation. Because you as the mentor are going to be doing a formal observation of your mentee in order to collect data and provide some feedback for that teacher to grow. And so you're going to agree upon a focus. If you don't have a focus, how do you know what the teacher needs are? Right? Because you might come in with one lens and that teacher's sitting there with a whole different lens. We need to make sure that we're all on the same page. So that's our focus. You see there a list of things that you might discuss in that pre-observation conference. That teacher may need to discuss plans. Okay, you might have to do some planning with him or her. You might need to look at what he or she has to determine what focus do we need to have. Okay, the assessments that are in place, the expectations. Have any of you ever not been nervous when you're observed? It's human nature, right? Even though we know this is our trusted mentor, maybe even our friend, and we've built this relationship, now she's coming in to watch me teach. I'm going to be a little nervous, okay? So part of what you're going to have to do in this pre-observation conference is calm that teacher down. I'm coming in because you tell me you want some strategies for classroom management. You cannot get this child to stay in her seat. She will not behave. So I'm going to have the opportunity to be in that room and observe what's happening, see the interaction that you have with that student so that we can come up with some strategies together. You're not putting the teacher on the spot. You're not there to judge. You're not there to criticize. You're there to identify a focus in the conference and then take that into the observation. So again, just focusing on that relationship at hand. We'll come back to our GPS. What comes after the pre-observation conference? Observation, okay? The primary purpose of the observation is to collect that data. Collecting data, not judgment. You are not an evaluator in this situation. Okay, some of you may serve as evaluators for other teachers, but you're not an evaluator for your mentee. So it's an entirely different type of observation, entirely different purpose. You're collecting data, not judgments. We have 4 methods of collecting data that we use with our mentors. You're going to have a chance tomorrow to practice 3 of these. Okay, typically, I don't know about you, but I know as a teacher, when I did have an opportunity to observe another teacher, typically it was, I'm going to come in and I'm going to watch and I'm going to tell you what a great job you did. That's not what the purpose of this is. Okay, we're going to collect that information so that we're able to provide some good feedback to the teacher. So we're going to do that through one of these 4 methods: scripting, so actually writing down everything that's said or all of the actions in the classroom; counting, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're counting an action. You're counting how many times something happens. Charting, depending on what the focus is, will determine what you're actually charting, and then diagramming, where maybe you're tracking movement in the classroom. We come back to the cycle, and now we have the post-observation conference. So this is where we're providing that feedback to the teacher. We need to make sure the teacher is ready to receive it, that we have an open dialogue. The purpose of it is to grow from where we are. Okay? We're going to help the teacher identify where he or she is and then establish some goals. We're going to talk about appropriate goal setting tomorrow, but we want to set those goals around 2 things. 1, where does the teacher need to grow? And 2, where can the students grow? Okay? Ultimately, by supporting the teacher, we're supporting the students. So we want to help the teacher move his or her students along, but we also want to help move that teacher along. So using the feedback that we've collected, what is the next step? We come back to the GPS. The next phase is the teacher learning opportunity. We have this here in the cycle because you're always going to have a TLO coming out of the post-observation conference, but a TLO can happen anytime. You might meet the teacher the very first day that you report back to the building, and that teacher might say, hey, I need you to tell me about classroom management. Everything you know, I need it. Okay? You know, what's that teacher need? A learning opportunity in classroom management. You might walk by the teacher's classroom and notice something going on, and you've identified a TLO. Ideally, you'll plan that together, but you're never going to walk out of that conference after the observation without having established goals, and you can't just leave them with goals without a plan, so you're going to have a TLO. All right, well, before we do this, on the outside of the GPS, you'll notice we've talked a lot about differentiating, right? We're establishing differentiated mentoring to support beginning teachers. And you see what's in the red there? We're trying to help them build their practice. We don't want to cripple the teachers. We don't want them to always have to lean on us. The goal is that eventually they will fly our nest. Okay? So we're building their efficacy, helping them build their practice. Now we're going to do an activity. And it's a lineup activity. You've been sitting for a little while. It's time to move again. I don't know about you, but after lunch, I'm always like, get me out of my chair. Okay? So I want you to think of your favorite food, and do not tell anybody. Everybody have something in mind? Favorite food. We're going to line up alphabetically by our favorite food, but you can't tell anybody what it is until you get over there in the line and you're figuring out where you need to be. Because what's going to happen is she's going to be like, oh, my favorite food are apples. Oh yeah, I like apples too. Oh, I like apples. I'll go over there with you. Okay? Because it's good to be with your friends, but it's time to mix up a little bit. So don't tell anybody until you get in the line, and then let's go over there by Todd's table, A all the way to Z. Everybody understand what we're doing? All right, then I'll give you more instructions. I do need you to kind of like get in line and then be ready for instructions. You can't all be apples.
Pull down this way with the
Single file line. You can't just get in the right place.
What are you? I'm in a putting the melon. She said melon.
All right, melons are here.
Kindergarten.
Okay.
9 now.
Yeah, that's what I had written down. Okay.
I'm at 8.
All right. Oh, don't go that far. Okay. All right, then I'm going to do it this way.
And if you need me, I'll step in.
Okay. All right, this gives you a little more space. Y'all can spread out a little bit. Yes. All right. I'm not a math teacher, so I hope I get my numbers right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. You stay right where you are. I'm getting my steps in. I got a new Fitbit. All right, follow me. Hi, everybody. We're going to kind of squeeze in here. So you're lined up here. That's your partner right there. Stay in a line. That's your partner. You have 2 lines now, facing each other, facing each other. We good? Okay. All right. You did that so well. Okay, y'all did that very well. I got some extra steps in for the day, so thank you. What we're going to do is basically a little speed dating. Okay, so you have a partner. I'm going to put a question up on the screen in just a moment, and I'll read it because it's kind of hard to see if you are like me. I'm always like, I need glasses, but I don't want to wear them. So I'll help you kind of walk through what it is. But I want you to have a conversation with your date around this question, and I'll just give you about 3 minutes or so for the question, and then we're going to move. Okay? So don't get too comfortable. You're going to get to meet some other people. But what needs, think back to what we did this morning with beginning teacher needs. What needs do you think the beginning teacher is going to have during the pre-observation conference, the very beginning of the mentoring cycle? And then what roles do you think the mentor is going to need to assume? So maybe everybody on the back line can talk about the needs and everyone on this line talk about the roles. Okay? So about 3 minutes to discuss that. You guys are great. You know, high school teachers never raise their hands. So, like when I started doing this, I was like, oh, it's like teaching kindergarten. But adults are a lot like kindergarten students. We like to talk. But y'all are great because it's hard when you're all lined up to get everybody's attention. Maureen, would you share with the group what you and your friend discussed in terms of the beginning teacher needs and then the roles that the mentor would need to play?
Yes. We talked about developing rapport, being able to kind of share, where did you go to school and what, how did you land in South Carolina? Are you, from here, or, that kind of thing. What availability, that I want you to exchange contact information so that you know how to contact me, I know how to contact you when something comes up. And then we also talked about identifying a focus for the observation. I can be looking at your classroom management. I'll be looking at everything, but what is it specifically that you feel like maybe you're struggling with that you'd like me to really hone in on?
Mm-hmm. So really kind of setting the tone for the observation, making sure that you're on the same page, you've agreed upon that focus, and understanding that teacher's going to be nervous and we're going to have to be a little reassuring.
One other thing that Kylie was bringing up, that we've all had first year.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Everybody has that anxiety, and we're not perfect the first year, and we're not perfect the last year.
Right. And how about just share with them, I get nervous when people come in my classroom too. So it's okay to feel that way, but you shouldn't be nervous about it being me, that I'm here to help you. So really establishing what that experience is going to be like. Thank you guys. All right, just like speed dating, we've got to meet some new people. So I'm going to have the person on the very end loop around to the beginning of the line, and then everybody shift down one. She's getting her steps. All right, you have a new question. New question. Beginning teacher needs during the observation and the roles the mentor is going to need to play during that observation. So about 3 minutes. Go.
We said that what they need during the post-observation is just like she said, whatever you said you were in there to observe, that's what you need to talk about. Mm-hmm. And she also said that you need to start off, with the positive and, let them know what they did wasn't necessarily wrong, mm-hmm. that maybe it just didn't work at that time.
Mm-hmm. And it may be that there isn't anything glaringly wrong.
Yes.
Remember, sometimes our beginning teachers they're not struggling as much as we kind of make them out to be in here. Sometimes we get some really strong teachers even in the early of the first year. I love start with the positive. So we're going to talk about really validating and giving them that positive affirmation that it's okay, you did well. So starting there. All right, switch. Oh, we got another comment? Yes. No, go ahead.
It's just me coaching teachers. When you go into and you start off with a positive, what I have found, the difference between retaining that teacher is not going in and telling them that that's what's wrong, mm-hmm. letting them talk their way through it. So mm-hmm. asking them, all right, I came into observing, tell me, how do you think this lesson went? Mm-hmm. And then let them come up with it, because what I find is if you're telling them and then giving them those suggestions, 9 times out of 10, if I don't think I got that issue and you're the problem, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to see the same result. Mm-hmm. But if I take ownership, and that's what we spoke about, is giving that teacher that ownership, mm-hmm. that's something that I really need to work on.
Right.
And I promise I'm going to keep my mouth shut, but I just wanted to...
I don't want you to keep your mouth shut.
But I have to think about it because I see the whole gamut of
mm-hmm.
things. Just what is effective.
Right.
And we want to get
mm-hmm.
the most right.
And what we said was we're collecting evidence, we're not collecting judgments. And so we are going to give them the feedback. We're going to say, here's what the notes I took. What do you see? So you're absolutely right. They're going to pull it out. They know. I mean, they were in the room too, so they know. They may not want to own it all the time, but they'll sometimes, but you can get them there.
You have to use wisdom to kind of get them there,
mm-hmm.
and then ask the right questions.
Right, and we're going to give you a whole coaching dialogue protocol, which probably is very similar to what you've used with your training. All right, rotate. All right, TLOs. All right. Andy, would you all share, please?
Huh?
Would you share? Huh?
There was some talk about me being in a cave at the top of a mountain, and then this guy would have to climb, and then I prostrate my feet while I told him wise things. But then we thought maybe we were talking about how when you talk about a learning opportunity that you give sort of a larger context for it, why it's something significant, important, and maybe what other related effects maybe surround this thing. In other words, just give more of a context.
Okay, so putting it in context, letting the teacher understand why this is an opportunity, why this may be an area that they need to grow, but then also think about the role of the mentor. That new teacher, if you say you need to learn more about differentiation, where does the teacher go? They don't know where to find information, so you have to be that resource. You have to be that advocate for them that, hey, I know some great resources. Hey, I know where we can get some information. I know the perfect person for you to talk to. So really kind of meeting them where they are. Did you want to add something?
You sort of said what I was going to say, but I use a lot of ASCD materials because they have webinars, they have DVDs, they have stuff on every conceivable topic, and their stuff is wonderful. And the other thing that we talked about that I think is really important is if you have a teacher who's particularly good at that skill that the mentee is weaker at, that's a golden opportunity to say, I have this teacher who really rocks in differentiating stuff, and I'd really like you to go and watch how she, he or she does.
Being able to connect people where their strengths are. And just because you brought it up, new teachers do get free membership in ASCD in South Carolina. So that can be a resource for them. Anything we need to add? You good? All right.
I've heard broad, but also specific. Learning opportunities can be specific. And Lindsay talked about seeing a teacher climb on furniture to change or grab something. And so in that moment, that's a learning opportunity because policy that they signed stated they could not do things like that. So yes, learning opportunities can be progressive and reflective, but it also needs to be direct in some situations.
And maybe immediate.
Exactly. Yeah. And oftentimes I think we try to offer them, well, how could we have done this or what can we do here? And there's some things where it's just like, no, I gotta do it. I saw you have a kid up on the desk. Can't ever happen.
Yeah, there's some things that can't wait. And so, we have to recognize those opportunities. Like we said, TLOs can happen anywhere, at any time. So we just recognize when we need to address something and when that teacher needs to learn, whether it's a policy, a guideline, a new skill, whatever it is. Okay? All right. Thank your date, and you can return to your seats. Now, I'll say this, you're going to get a break in a few minutes.
Dates to me up.
All right, I think you had some great conversations, really started tossing around that idea of, remember we talked about the beginning teacher needs are not the same throughout the year, and so even within the mentoring cycle, those needs are going to vary. And so recognizing what the needs are when you're walking into a conference or when you're walking into an observation and that teacher's nervous and realizing they need support or resources or an intervention of some kind. Okay, so being able to address them. Remember that your formal interactions are just as important as your informal interactions. So there are times that you're going to be that cheerleader, that coach, academic advisor, you're going to fill all kinds of roles, and you saw how they fit into the 3 different categories that we've talked about. But there are also times you might be the friend. You might be the person that's showing them, hey, this is where you go grocery shopping. This is where you can go to the movie. This is, the area you don't necessarily want to visit after 9 p.m. This is the area you do want to visit. This is, this is where we eat lunch. This is where we go out for a glass of lemonade after work on a Friday. We had a beverage committee. We liked lemonade, okay? But those new teachers need to know those things. Otherwise, they might be sitting at home with no support, no connections. And the more you can get them connected, the more likely they are to not feel isolated. And remember, feeling isolated and not having support was one of those reasons that Jenna talked about new teachers leaving. Okay, so the more we can do to support them and include them, the better off we're all going to be. So successful mentoring is a combination of both those formal and informal, and we're going to talk tomorrow about the difference between a conversation and a coaching dialogue and give you some key strategies to use during those coaching dialogues. How often do you think that you need to communicate with your mentee? Frequent?
I think it's minimum of once a week. I think we're supposed to have a meeting with them, but probably daily.
Could be daily, could be weekly. Doesn't it really depend on the mentee? You're going to have some who are going to want you to hold their hand. And you're going to have some who are going to want to fly a little bit without you, right? And you're going to have different times of the year. You're going to have periods where they might feel pretty comfortable, and then all of a sudden, what do you mean we're supposed to have grades in the grade book? Grades are due when? 5 o'clock? So there are times that we need to really be there so we don't find ourselves in that situation. So remembering that, we need to meet with them as often as needed, okay, based on differentiated mentoring. In your book, you have a contact log. It's on page 32. Your mentoring and induction coordinator has an electronic copy of this that he or she can provide to you. Some districts may have their own form that they use, but this just gives you a way to keep track of those formal interactions. You might not write down every time you talk to them in the hallway, but at least when you're really kind of doing the work and talking about the profession, kind of keeping track of that so that you know, hey, I have supported this teacher. Your district might ask you to keep track of that and submit it to them. This is the kind of information you can give them. If you have a principal or somebody in the district who is saying, hey, Laura, tell me, how's she doing? Is she a good teacher? Should we keep her? Should you be sharing that? Because you have what at the center? Trust. Okay? But Laura, have you met with her? Yeah, I have a contact log. I can tell you we've met. This is what we've talked about. And you'll have that general list. Okay? Not breaking any confidentiality, but this gives you something that you can give the district if asked or even required. And like I said, your coordinators do have that. Your districts may have their own version of it. There's nothing proprietary or fancy about this. It's simply a log. And you see a sample of one filled out. Certain times of the academic year, we've talked about that. Let's not wait until grades are due at 5 o'clock. Okay, let's prepare them and support them through the process. On page 31, critical times and events. So you have that in your handbook, just reminding you of times that your mentee may need you more so than at other times. All right. You guys have been exposed to the cycle. As I said, tomorrow we will live there. We will go through each of the different parts of the mentoring cycle and give you some opportunity to practice both being a mentor and being a mentee so that you can experience it. I have the pleasure of being the nice one and give you a break. So let's take 5 minutes. I have 2:28, so that means you need to be back here at 2:33. My son used to say, oh, let's say like about 2:33. No, 2:33. Okay, 2:33.